Here are 5 words every RV enthusiast should know: advocacy, community, education, resources, rewards. That's what the RV Advisor was built on, along with protecting your rights. Visit thervadvisor.com.
This is the RV Advisor Podcast with your host, Tom Alexander. Get all the latest information, trends, advice from experts, stories from the road, and more in the world of recreational vehicles. Now, here's Tom.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the RV Advisor Podcast. I'm Tom Alexander. My guests today are the Days. It's Elisabeth and Jason Day. How are you, folks?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing very well, thanks. You are the Runaway parents. I love that. I think that's absolutely great. You can find them at the.runaway.parents at Instagram, and all kinds of great photos. And boy, 14,000 followers. That you guys are pretty darn popular, huh?
I guess so.
Now you're in Orlando. You're in Orlando, Florida, central part of the state, just up the road about 3 hours from where we are. And I guess that's a good place to be with kids because a little bit to do up there, right? Just, a few theme parks, I hear.
Yeah, just a couple. Yeah.
They're enjoying that. You guys, I guess you're all kind of partaking in that, huh?
Yeah, I mean, this is our third winter in Florida, and as far as like being around other community members, other kids, I feel like Florida is the place to be. There's a lot of other full-time families that are in this area, and it does have, the weather obviously is beautiful, so lots to do, hiking, exploring, and then if you do want to partake in the the theme parks, there are plenty of those too.
There are, yeah. There's you can't really run out of stuff to do in that part of the state, that's for sure. Lots going on. So do you both work from I assume you both work from your vehicle on the road, and so to speak?
Yeah, so I handle most of my business is doing like working with brands to create content for them, not necessarily put on but like doing videos and commercials for them. And Jason has more of a seasonal job. So in the summer times we go and we travel, and
a little bit less traveling. I do a little bit of sales, and so it makes us a little more stationary sometimes in the summer. But we're still able to get out a little bit.
Yeah, we just renovated we call it the Mom Mobile, a 20-foot travel trailer. It's like a hybrid, so it has like bump outs on either side.
Yeah.
So that way I can take the kids, and if he needs to be stationary, I can still take them and explore. Oh,
that's terrific.
Yeah.
And you said you launched out of the great state of Utah.
Yeah.
A little bit of a drive from Orlando.
A little bit of train difference.
That's for sure. But a beautiful state, and just incredible scenery out there. And so the winter time, like you said, you're kind of stationed in the South, Orlando right now, to be specific. Are you going to kind of get to a few other areas while you're in the
yeah, so we launched out west, spent our first winter in California and Arizona, and then headed out east and kind of bounced around East Coast to the Midwest for the last few years. But we are heading west this spring to go and see more of the West, because we didn't get enough of it, obviously. So.
Yeah. Is that where you're from originally, out west? You're both from out west originally, or?
No, so I'm from Utah. I grew up there, born and raised. And so I still love the state. She's from upstate New York. So it was a little bit of a transition for her to get used to the West Coast. But now that we've been there and then left, I think she misses it.
No, I do. It's beautiful. And there's a lot to do. Like, as far as like, we ride dirt bikes and things like that. We're outdoorsy in that way. So
great.
The kids are all missing their dirt bikes, and they want to go out.
I'll bet they are. Yeah. And it's you and what, 4 kids?
We have 6 kids. 4 of them travel with us. Our older 2 are grown, so they're on their own now.
I got you. Wow,
Yeah.
Boy, that's a good sized family.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's great. We're talking with Elisabeth and Jason. They're the Runaway parents, and I got to ask you about the origin of that, and we'll learn about the origin of that on the other side of the break. This is the RV Advisor podcast. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment.
Here are 5 words every RV enthusiast should know: advocacy, community, education, resources, rewards. That's what the RV Advisor was built on, along with protecting your rights. Visit thervadvisor.com.
We're back on the RV Advisor podcast. I'm Tom Alexander. My guests are the Days. It is Elisabeth and Jason from Runaway Parents. Now, I gotta ask you, Runaway Parents. You don't hear that very often, although I would
Right.
imagine some parents sometimes feel like they want to run away. Can you share the origin of the creation of this name?
Yeah. So the thought with Jason's business, we knew that traveling together as a family would be an option during the summers. And like living in an RV, I was like, we could do 6 months, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so there was a lot that went into like the process of getting to that point where we decided to sell everything. But it really was sitting down and being like, I just want to run away. I want to run away from all of the things that are holding us back, like time with you and the kids outdoors, and just like serving other people, all the things we didn't have time for because we were just so busy.
Stuck in that rat race, that 9 to 5,
Yes.
just trying to pay the bills and looking forward to that few days a year you can go camping or go backpacking, but
you just live for those 2 weeks, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, I'll admit we were totally like, our lifestyle was trying to keep up with the Jones and like have the night, like we were living life to pay for things. And I wasn't happy. He wasn't happy. The kids, they went to school, came home. We fought about schoolwork, doing homework, put them to bed. And it was just like this cycle. And I'm like, this is not living. This is not what I want for our family. And I just want to run away. I just want to run away. And so
I think a lot of people, I could certainly relate to that and have been there and sometimes even still go there. But I think a lot of people can relate to that. You know,
Yeah.
it is oftentimes you live to exist. You don't exist to live, you know?
Yeah.
And that's not fun. I don't think that was the big plan, you know?
No, exactly. Exactly.
So I think it's one. So you have run away,
Mhm.
but not far. In other words, you're still connected to the world and doing your thing, but on your terms.
Right. Well, I think in addition to that, for us, it was running away from expectations of other people and like parental guilt and things like that. Like we knew this was going to break us to build us back up. Like we wanted a fresh start. We called it the reset. Like we just wanted a reset of life to be able to build it the way that we wanted, wholeheartedly and with intention. And so we're like, okay, let's just do it. And it was terrifying, but it felt right. And so we did it.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, you know, hats off. It's an inspiration. I know a lot of people kind of come to that crossroads at some point. They, you know, and I guess to some degree, rightfully so, there was a perception that RVing was really strictly for retirees that had money, can go do it, and that was it.
Yep.
But it has changed dramatically. And even more so since the pandemic, where people have changed, you know, they've kind of looked in the mirror and said, you know what? Enough.
Yep.
Let's simplify. And yes, going into it knowing, I think full well that, you know, look, it's not going to be, you know, you don't just flip a switch and you go from sticks and bricks or bricks and mortar to 4 wheels or more on the ground, and it's going to be like nothing ever happened. There's a transition period.
Totally.
Share a little bit about the transition.
Woo!
Keep in mind that this show doesn't have a part 2, but you know.
Well, we have 4 kids, so you go from a good sized house to a very tight house. That was one of the transitions, and then also learning how to schedule out and you're still trying to live life intentionally. Yeah. So you're trying to have the school time, the work time, but keeping that play time in. And when you're out here, everybody wants to play.
It's like everyone thinks if you're not living this lifestyle, it's a permanent vacation. And while there is so much freedom with this lifestyle, in order to maintain this lifestyle and what's best for everyone is to have some type of structure as well.
Yeah.
So the transition was a little bit, I mean, the first few months were probably the hardest for me because I was like, what did we do? Like, I think anytime you either quit a job, start a new job, something happens where you grieve that old life a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I was dealing with that grieving process and so I let myself deal with that. And then after that, things have been great. So, I mean, we still deal with life, but.
Yeah. I think a lot of more people than not can relate to that too, because there's always very few people go through life these days where it's all one thing forever, you know. But there's a few that live the same kind of life day in and day out, and that's it. But most people have pretty big shifts in their lives. I've shared this on the show before. I grew up in the movie theater business, and it's all I knew with my dad and his brothers until I was 24 years old. I grew up in it. It's all I did. And then when the theater closed, I had to figure out what the heck I wanted to do with the rest of my life, which was the majority of my life left. and it was scary. And I buried those feelings of, well, I'll figure it out. No big deal. Well, then it kind of caught up to me. It's like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Fortunately, I found radio, and then it changed into, podcasting. Now the industry's changed so much, but it is something that everybody has to kind of deal with. I think it's inspiring the way you guys have done this. And I just love the name, the Runaway Parents. I just think that's such a great name. Talking with the Days there, it's Elisabeth and it's Jason, and they're up in Orlando. For me, it's up in Orlando. For a lot of you, it's out or over or down, but that's where they are. But any places on the map, and it's a big map, the United States, that's kind of on your bucket list or whatever list you want to call it, just a destination you'd love to both go. Maybe you can take turns.
Yeah, so I think as we've been out on the road, that's one thing that's changed is our list started out, pretty good size. And we thought we'd slowly start making it smaller and smaller, but it keeps growing bigger and bigger the more we're out here. So that list just keeps getting bigger. But West Coast is where we really want to get back to. Our family was happiest when we were out boondocking. One of our favorites was like Valley of Fire. So those types of places in Utah, there's some smaller ones that are less known, like Goblin Valley, that we'd really like to get to. And then we'd like to start working our way up to Alaska. I think that's one that we've talked about for so many years. But we've just never really gotten serious about making it happen. So I think that would probably be the next one that we'd like to make the push towards.
Well, that's a bit of a schlep up to Alaska. That's just not across the street, And but from almost every single person I've spoken with that's either visited Alaska via RV or or even cruises or flying up there, whatever it is, they've all come back changed in a good way, that it's just majestic and spectacular and awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that sounds like a fun days ahead. What about you, Elisabeth?
Oh gosh, I think for me, the transition will be eventually to probably live a bit of a hybrid lifestyle where we'll have our RV and maybe a home base here, but I really want to like travel internationally. So we were supposed to go to Mexico this year. It didn't work out. So we'll start with RVing Mexico and RVing Alaska. And then I would like to do like some of the time here RVing the US and then flying out and doing some backpacking with the kids when they're maybe a little bit older and can carry their own backpacks, like heavy backpacks. Do some international travel. So it doesn't stop at the US for us.
Yeah, that's great. We've actually had some folks on the podcast that have joined us from around the world. We've had folks on from Australia and from England and Italy and a few different spots on the planet, and shared stories. And strangely enough, and Ireland, strangely enough, RVing is catching on outside the United States.
Oh yeah.
And people are, it's surprising that people, we really think of it as an American phenomenon, or Canadian maybe too, but it's really expanding. People are really enjoying it at other spots on the planet. So that's really cool. So who knows,
Right.
When you do that international travel, that can be a whole new dimension and education.
Yeah, totally. I think, well, there's been a lot of like friends from the internet that have reached out to us and said we're traveling in Australia or, different places in a bus or a van, or like they've converted something, or an RV.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's awesome. I think RVing is like keeping the stability of a home. Everything is the same inside, but you're moving, right? And so for us, that was important at this point with our kids, because that whole, how are your kids going to have stability? Well, the stability is us and their home, and their home has wheels. And so their backyard changes, their experience changes, their like horizon changes, but they still have very much so like that stability. Yeah. And so to be able to do that in, across the pond would be nice too.
It would. And you'd be surprised how, in my experience, how many people, although it's cool to learn other languages too, but to how many folks speak English around the world, no matter where, you're going to find people that speak English, and it's in places sometimes you wouldn't expect.
Right.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. And of course, all those cultures and learning so much about other folks. It's great. Well, listen, this has been a blast. We'd love to have you on again.
Sure.
We'd love to talk to you again. Maybe we can reconnect in the spring or summer and maybe see where you're at. Maybe we'll catch you on the road somewhere. And
yeah.
you can share with us what you guys are up to, and maybe the kids can pop in and say hello as well. Who knows?
You sure you want that?
Well, we'll have to have some high level meetings about that. We'll follow your lead. I'm kidding. So everybody's welcome here on the show, and it was great to talk to you both. Have a great holiday season and safe travels, and we'll see you soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
My guests are Elisabeth and Jason Day, and they are the Runaway Parents. Yes, they are. You can find them at the.runaway.parents on Instagram. Check out all their cool photos and be among the 14,000 plus followers that they've got. This is the RV Advisor podcast. We'll be back to wrap things up in just a moment. Stay tuned.
GPS is Gigi's personal services. She's an RV expert with over 3 decades of experience. To learn more, visit thervadvisor.com today.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the RV Advisor podcast. Wrapping things up. Well, I've got to tell you, Neve is on her way to Ireland, so we'll be checking in with her real soon on the next show. But I also want to remind you that RVACA.org, that's RVACA.org is the place to go to register your unit. It's rvaca.org. Thanks so much for watching and listening to the RV Advisor podcast. We'll see you soon. So long, everybody.